To start the 2021-2022 NBA season, Miami Heat have been pretty good. As at the making of this video, they have a 23-15 record. They're also currently the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. And despite Miami being really impressive to start the season, I haven't really been hearing people talking about them that much. And that has led me to make this video where I'm going to be answering the question of whether or not I think the Miami Heat are pretenders or contenders. Basically, I'm going to talk about the positives about Miami and reasons to why they can be contenders, and I'm going to talk about some of the negative things that are holding them back from being contenders. But before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to reach my goal of 3,000 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro. Talk about some of the positives for Miami, we have to talk about how their offense has been really good this season, and the biggest reason this is really impressive is because last year their offense was absolutely terrible and it fell off a cliff. They were actually a bad offense in the NBA, but this season they are the 8th best ranked offense in the league. The team just looks way more fluent on offense. They have more guys who can hit shots more consistently, and they're not even playing great because Jimmy Butler's having like a spectacular season. He's playing good, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he's averaging like 30 points or something. They just have a bunch of guys who are producing at a really good level. But Jimmy Butler has definitely been their best player, as he's been averaging 23 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 50% from the field. He's been his usual Jimmy Butler self. There's not really much to say about Jimmy Butler. I think we all know how good he is. But to talk about their new addition in Kyle Lowry, he has played very well, and I honestly think he's the biggest reason for their offense being so much better than the previous year. Because of the way he just controls the pace of the team, he passes the ball so well. He's actually one of the most underrated passers in the league. He's always making sure the ball moves. He's like the perfect point guard for this roster. He's also putting up solid stats of 14 points and 8 assists, but I promise you his impact is way more than what his stats show. I think he's the 3rd most impactful player on this team, and he's just huge for this team, and he's barely been helping them out. Definitely not overpaid, and he's still a top 10 point guard in my opinion, maybe. Bam Adebayo hasn't played that much this season, but in the games he played, he seemed like his usual self, averaging 18 points and 10 rebounds, shooting over 50% from the field. I hope he can just go back to being healthy, especially by the time playoffs come, because he is their 2nd most valuable player, arguably their most valuable player. But when he returns, he's definitely going to be huge. I was hoping he could have a breakout season this year, but he's just been dealing too much with injuries. Tyler Hero has definitely taken the step in the right direction, as he might be in the argument for the most improved player award. After having a disappointing year when everyone was calling him overrated, he shut up all of the haters, averaging 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists on good efficiency this season. I always knew Tyler was a good player, and I never really called him overrated. I actually thought he was overhated, but it's good to just see him doing well, and I think he's this team's 2nd best scorer, and the stats are showing it. I'm really happy with how he's playing. In the case of Duncan Robinson, after getting a huge contract, he's slowly been on decline. He's shooting 34% from 3, which is a huge drop off for him, and he's shooting below 40% from the field. He simply has not been as good as he was in that year when Miami went to the finals. Hopefully he brings it up. He's still a good overall player, because defenses are still scared of him to shoot the ball. They still treat him like he's an elite shooter. I'm not saying he's a bad shooter or anything. He just hasn't been knocking down shots as well as he was before. To talk about some of the more smaller role players, PJ Tucker has been a good floor spacer, shooting 46% from 3. Max Strus is an absolute gem of a player, and I think he's going to be huge for this team. He's a really good shooter. He's a guy who can even go off the dribble, finish at the rim occasionally, and hit difficult shots. He's really good. Caleb Martin's a good energy guy who has definitely improved his game. He's actually one of the more underrated role players in the league with his defense, his ability to just play off the ball and like play off main scorers. He's also now a capable three-point shooter now. Gabe Vincent's a really solid backup guard for them. He's an absolute gem for them as well. Miami's just amazing at finding guys who are on teams who like teams don't really want, and then turning them into really solid players, or just finding the talent for them. Vincent's a really solid player. He's had a few big games for them. He's a guy who could score like outside and finish at the rim. He's not much of a great passer, but they do have Kyle Lowry, so they don't need him to be. But overall, I think a reason for this team being title contenders is the fact that this team is one of the better offenses in the league, and the way they run their offense is in a way that I think can translate to the playoffs, because this is a team with multiple guys who can space the floor out and multiple guys who can attack the rim and put pressure on the defense, and they have multiple guys who can go off on any given night, which is huge and makes them very unpredictable, especially postseason time. Another reason the Heat could be viewed as title contenders is the fact when it comes to the defensive side of the floor, the Heat are actually one of the best in the league, as they rank 8th in the league. When you look at this roster, they just have so much solid defenders, and I'm not going to say it's surprising that they are this good on defense, but when you look at how much games like their best defenders have missed, you could actually argue if they were healthy, they could be a top 5 defense in the league. They have Jimmy Butler, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. When it comes down to playoff time, I know he's going to even be better. Bam Adebayo is a top 5 defender in the league. I don't care what you say. He's also like the second most versatile defender in the league. He literally hasn't missed half the season, so you know they would be way better if like he wasn't like missing so much time. They'd definitely be a top 5 defense. He's literally their best defender by far. Kyle Lowry is a very solid defender. He does a lot of the little things. He's also very strong, so even if a player is taller than him, he can still guard them at a decent level. PJ Tucker is a very good perimeter defender and a versatile defender. Caleb Martin's really solid on defense, does a lot of the little hustle plays, and he's solid on ball. Gabe Vincent's also a really solid defender, and he's very scrappy, and they could just put him on other teams' best guards at times. And sure, Miami does have a few weak defenders. Tyler Hero's not the best defender in the world. At times he looks terrible. Duncan Robinson is definitely not a good defender at all. He's actually like really bad. If I'm being honest, I don't know how good of like Max Strus is as a defender. He doesn't look like the worst, but I doubt he's like a great defender. But overall, Miami is just a team that has one of the better defenses in the league, and I think their defense will translate to the playoffs because they just have so much guys who can defend the paint, defend the perimeter, and guys who could be versatile. And I think they like have enough defenders to where they can match up against the guys like Kevin Durant, Giannis, James Harden, Kyrie, and maybe even like a guy like Joel Embiid. Because if there's one defender I want guarding Joel Embiid, it probably is Bam Adebayo, because they arguably might have like the most good defenders on their team in the Eastern Conference. The only team that I think competing with them in that case is the Milwaukee Bucks. So Miami's defense is definitely a huge W. Another thing Miami has really impressed me with this season is the fact that they are the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. They're still a top 10 defense in the league, top 10 offense, and this is with them missing a lot of their best players for a significant amount of time. Honestly, that's the most impressive thing about Miami to me this season, because to name some of the guys they've been missing, Bam Adebayo has missed 20 out of the possible 38 games this season, meaning he's missed more than half the year. Jimmy Butler has missed 15 games this season, which is a crazy amount. Kyle Lowry has missed 4 games. PJ Tucker's missed 6 games. Basically, a lot of their best players have been missing a lot of time, and yet they still have a very strong record, which shows that they arguably have one of the best depth in the league. When it comes to the Eastern Conference, I don't know if there's a team that has better depth than Miami, maybe besides like the Hornets or the Hawks, but those teams are just simply not better than Miami right now. But yeah, those are mainly all the reasons why I think the Miami can be contenders. I'm honestly baffled at the fact that with all these injuries to their best players, they still have an amazing record. Honestly, you could argue with like their guys like not being injured and stuff like that, they could honestly have like one of the better records in the league, like have a top 3 record in the league. And in my opinion, I think they would have the best record, at least in the Eastern Conference, if they were fully healthy. But then again, you have to realize that other teams have dealt with injuries and like the COVID protocols and stuff. I'm not gonna lie, the COVID stuff and injuries has hit Miami hard. But yeah, they're just really impressing me, and I just love this team. I've been loving this team since they made it to the finals. But now to talk about the negatives with this team and why they might not be a contender. To talk about some of the reasons as to why Miami might not be contenders, there's only like one main reason, and it's the fact that although Miami's a really good team, they simply don't have a superstar on this roster. And I know you might be thinking that Jimmy Butler is a superstar, but from what I've seen from him last year in the postseason, honestly, I'm not comfortable calling him that. But I do think he's a really good player. Obviously, he's still top 20 player in the NBA. And I think he's on the level right under being a superstar type of player. When you look at the other teams in the Eastern Conference, all those other teams that are contenders in the Eastern Conference, they all have a superstar level player. When you look at the Brooklyn Nets, they have James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie. When you look at the Bucks, they have Giannis Antetokounmpo. When you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, they have Joel Embiid. I'm not here to disrespect Jimmy Butler. He's a for sure all-star top player in the league. When it comes down to the playoff time, there's a huge difference between a superstar like Kevin Durant and a guy like Jimmy Butler. And that could potentially come back to bite Miami. Also, there's a little bit of a concern about what Miami did last season, where we saw them we thought they were gonna potentially even beat the Bucks. Then they completely fumbled the bag and got swept. Their offense was looking terrible. Their defense was looking terrible. They disappointed everyone. But to be honest, I don't think that will repeat this season, because Kyle Lowry is the perfect point guard for this team. Calms the offense down, runs it perfectly, things like that. So I don't think they'll have that problem again. But it could be a little bit of concern, but I'm not going to be concerned about that. But to be honest, outside of those two things, I don't really have any huge concerns about this team. Maybe you could say they're not as talented as other teams, but I'd argue that they are just as talented as any other team in the league, because they just have so much guys who can go off on any given night. But that's just all the negative things about Miami when it comes to them being contenders. But to now answer the question of whether or not I think the Miami Heat are title contenders, I honestly do think they are title contenders, which means I think there's a legitimate chance they can make it out of the Eastern Conference and make the NBA Finals and maybe even win it. But don't get it twisted, I will not predict Miami to make it out of the Eastern Conference. There are three teams that I have above them in making it, but I could see a world where Miami makes it to the Finals. I don't think they're a better team than the Bucks because what we saw last season. I don't think they're better than the Nets because they don't have the star power and offensive power to keep up with them. And I don't think they're better than the Bulls right now, although I will say with the Bulls, I think they're literally the same in my opinion. I think there's barely any difference between the two teams. Only reason I give the Bulls a little advantage is because right now they have a better record and they have two guys who are prolific 25 points per game scorers, but it's very close between both of them. If they had a series, I'd predict it to go to 7 games. If you think Miami is better than the Bulls, I won't even argue with you. But to conclude, Miami's just looking good. I hope they are successful in the playoffs, because my Raptors aren't even a real contender. So as long as any team besides the Brooklyn Nets make the finals, I'll be happy, man. Good luck. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think Miami is real contenders. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to help my goal of 3,000 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments. And I'm out.